It is June 13th, 2019, 5:30, and we are having our Cache Board of Education retreat. Hey, hang on. All of a sudden, my whole thing went away.
That means it's supposed to be over.
Let me see. Okay, we can't start for just a second.
So if that was one pre-season.
What time is the game, so we know when we're shooting for here to be done?
7 or 7:30?
Okay.
7.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and begin with a roll call. Larry, would you go ahead and start?
Larry Jepson, board member.
Randall Bagley, board member.
Steve Norton, superintendent.
Roger Pulsifer, board member.
Kathy Christensen, board member.
Jeff Nielsen, board member.
Terry Rhodes, board member.
Dale Hanson, business administrator.
And Chris Corcoran, board member, is excused. Okay, we'll have the pledge, and I will lead the pledge and mission statement. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world. And there's no public input. So we just have a few reports from different board members here of things that they are working on and we need to discuss. So we're going to start with Larry, who will talk a little bit about how we can go about getting the board policies cleaned up.
Okay, the first item was to talk about what to do with the 2000 level policies. And what you'll find, the sheets that are floating in that packet, I have printed off all of the policies in the 2000 range. And I have written comments on them and made a recommendation as far as I see it. And what I wanted to do is to give you a week to review and see if you agree, disagree, have suggestions or comments for me. And then I'll take these and meet with Jenda, and we'll go through and start moving through these. As far as several of them I think need to be retired. You know, there's a couple of them that to me simply say all employees of the Cache County School District should be nice. And I don't know that that's a necessary policy. And so I'm not going to spend more time on those. You can read through and make comments and just give me your comments through an email or however you'd like to. And we'll
So
go.
how do you suggest that we go about this? Take a couple of them each board meeting and discuss them? Or what's
Well,
kind of your vision?
To do it legally, we need to have it on the agenda for 2 board meetings.
Okay.
And so the first board meeting would be a time for open discussion. And then the second board meeting would be the official retiring or whatever we're going to do.
Okay.
Couldn't we take them all as a group, kind of like a consent agenda? I mean, you've already put your notes on there, on each one for your recommendation. And so we can either concur or make our own suggestions or whatever.
I think we have to have them on 2 agendas just to,
Well, I
Have
mean,
them-
yeah, on 2 agendas, but I mean,
Yeah.
instead of taking 2 each board meeting or,
oh, yes.
I mean, take them as a group
Yeah, I
because
think
most of
we
them
could
are
do that,
retire, right?
especially the second meeting. You know, the first meeting, we probably need to have it where we could discuss any or all of them, but the second meeting especially, I think we could do that.
So is the first meeting, then it would be next week, right?
I don't know if,
No, because next week is a
probably-
regular
that's when
board
I'll get the
meeting, and that's
feedback.
where we actually do action. So
Okay.
the first meeting would have to be a study session where we're just discussing it.
yeah,
Okay,
So that the second meeting is then a regular board
An
meeting
action.
where we would take action on it.
all right, so, in thinking about the schedule, the next one then would be the July 12th or whatever it is. That's the night of our get-together. So would this take a long time? Because I'm just thinking, we probably want to have that meeting be a little shorter.
yeah.
Don't we only have one meeting in July?
Uh-huh,
So it may have to wait till
It
August.
may be better to wait till August.
okay.
And that'll give me a chance to move on this other part that I'm gonna present, and,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
If
we
you
could-
wanted, I think you could actually conduct it in the next board meeting next week, just because we do have a report section on that where it's not a problem to do that outside of a regular study session.
So that would be like our first reading or our first discussion. Do you want to do it that way, Larry?
well,
It's
as
possible
long
if you'd
as,
like.
I get feedback.
From everybody? Is that enough time for everybody to look through it and send comments or whatever to Larry?
Okay.
That work? Okay. Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
This
thanks
has
for
just
putting your
bugged me for 6
recommendations in,
years,
too.
and I've never known what to do about it, so. Thank you
Okay.
for getting that going.
Then if you'll take the PowerPoint that I printed off, and as Kathy and I talked, we decided to combine this with my report from Philadelphia, because the two sessions that really impacted me in Philadelphia were both on policy. And I learned some things that I feel like are critical in working with policy that I had never heard defined in the 4 years I've been here. And so, the first one, the policies are broad, provide direction, and minimum expectations.
Where are you?
Next page, page two.
The second page. And that's the key there, policies are broad, for the most part. A lot of our legislators don't understand that, and we'll talk about that in a second. The board votes on the policy changes after being on the agenda for 2 meetings to allow for public input or question. We may, however, do direct action if there's a need to. And this one I thought was important because I've had that question in my mind. There's 3 words that need to be changed in this policy or something like that. Minor changes do not have to be brought to the board for a vote. If it's not changing the intent of the policy or its content, just correcting something that needs to be corrected, it can be done without bringing it for a vote. And I thought that was important, because that at least has been a question in my mind, how to handle that. And then what we will do, we'll still bring, as we get this committee running, we will still bring policies before the board that do not need changes, but that have been still in place for a period of years. The reason being, that's the only way the board as a whole will ever really know what's in our board policy. If we don't bring it, you'll never know. So that's that part. The second type of documents on the 3rd page, procedures and guidelines. This is where it gets more specific. This is developed by the administration and then provided to the board. Again, implemented after 2 meetings. And procedures, guidelines, I think a good example of that would be what Mike did for us on the school fees. That's not a policy, that's a procedure where it got very specific how much we're gonna charge for each thing. And so getting that difference in our heads between policy and procedures, I feel like is a big step, because I've never heard that defined while I've been here. Okay, and then turning over, this just looks at those two things in a little different frame of mind. Policy is the who, what, and why. Sets goals, resolves issues, defines and aligns the responsibilities, and establishes how we're going to measure or oversee it. And then on to the next one, guidelines and regulations, then are the how. Again, this is where it gets more definitive, and the administrators are the ones that, the specialists in the subject areas are the ones that will define that and put it into action. And then the district level policies and handbooks, that's the everyday thing that a principal can turn to, a director of any of the departments. That's their Bible that they can go to and know they're in the right place, doing the right thing. So I was just very appreciative of those things coming out of those sessions, because it was not clear in my mind. And this next one then, beware of board policies, that is probably in reality the most important slide in the whole thing. Beware of policies that contain excessive detailed procedures that are not required. The fourth one, that tie the hands of employees. That's what the legislature is trying to do in many cases, is to pass policies that tell you when to breathe, when not to breathe, when to go to the bathroom, and so on. We need to make sure that our policies leave the administrator's room to function and work within them. And so that was important. I was impressed with be careful about addressing specific fads or one-time situations. They mentioned the one school districts, when the spikes were a big deal, wrote policies about anyone wearing spikes, which could have been just as effectively done by anyone bringing anything into the classrooms that could be dangerous to students. Would have done the same thing and would have allowed administrators then to deal with it in the right way. And so, and the one that I don't see any problem with our board, the second to the last one, things that reflect one or two board members and not the board as a whole. I don't see any concerns in my part there right now. And then, of course, beware of potential legal issues. So we don't want to put the district in harm's way. And so the biggest challenge, updating, revising, and deleting. And so here's my proposal. Policy committee members. Number one, a district individual with primary responsibility is to stay up to date on policies and to bring the committee together. They will coordinate all policy activity. Will be a clearinghouse, so to speak, on any policy activity. On that committee, there would be 3 board members, superintendent and our representatives. And then we would bring in other district leaders and department heads as policies applied to them and were appropriate. The same could be said for parents and community leaders where we needed that input or they had a specific,
I have a question,
Interesting.
just in this. What, does that mean that, like, you know how the district people bring policies to us? Does it have to go through that committee then before it gets to the board?
that's the idea of where we'd kind of like it to go. And that way, when it gets here to the board, we already know where we're at with it, and most of the things that we're sending back for correction and change are already taken care of, hopefully. So that's the thought right now. Now, whether that's realistically going to work or where it's gonna settle, only time's gonna tell us, because this whole thing's gonna be an experiment. But the idea would be to meet monthly, and, well, the last page, meet monthly, get to where we can work out a yearly schedule. Obviously, we're not going to do that right at the beginning while we get going, but reach that point where we can have a yearly schedule mapped out to where we know the basic things we're going to review. And the third one, work with the goal of retiring a minimum of one per month and reviewing or revising two. That's totally subject to change. That's kind of a number pulled out of the air to give us something to start from and adjust as needed. And then the other thing would be, agenda right now is going to be that person. And the other thing would be to have district people, when Mike's working on a new policy, or Scott, that they would let Jenda know, I'm working on this policy, so that we know what's coming down the pipe. And so it's gonna be interesting and challenging. If we can get it moving over the course of a year, we would probably, this first year, we'd probably get through someplace in the range of 50 to 70 policies,
How many do you
depending
have,
on.
you know?
Tim was gonna research it for me. He couldn't tell me the other day when we met.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
The book used to be that thick, now it's electronic, but
Yeah.
it's huge.
It is huge, so I'm thinking we're gonna retire quite a few of those policies that we don't really.
There will be a lot, and be a lot rewritten. But
So are you
that's the
counting,
idea.
are you counting Jenda as the administrative person, and Kurt would be the overall person from the district that would be on your committee, or are you thinking Jenda can fill that role? I'm just curious of your feeling, because I can do whatever you want, but
I think it would be good to have Kurt, and I know Tim would like to be a part of it.
So he might be the administrative person then, Tim. And Jenda is kind of a committee member.
There's kind of a natural there with Tim and Jenda,
Yeah, there is.
and they're the two that have really taken the interest.
But your legal expertise lies with Kurt, so he needs to be
Yeah.
out there somewhere too.
Okay, any comment, questions, concerns, feelings?
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
This will be like a miracle if we ever get this pulled off.
It'll be a miracle if it works, yes.
Not necessarily if it works, but there's just so much. And it's just been compounded year after year after
Yeah.
year instead of
Yeah.
being.
Well, that's,
fixed.
hopefully we can make a beginning, and, you know, this first year, we're probably gonna be all over the place and readjusting goals and thoughts and such, but we'll make a beginning.
So I am hoping that you will be the one who conducts that meeting when the committee meets. Is that how that will work?
Either I or agenda,
Oh, okay,
depending on how we see that working.
okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and
Is
move,
that fast enough?
that was awesome. That was great, I thought we were gonna be here for hours on that one. All right, okay, we're up with your part, Jeff, on this evaluation, board evaluation.
Okay, first of all,
Wait, sorry, I was counting while you were talking.
You were counting?
Yes. About 170
Oh,
policies.
170 policies. Oh, that's less than I thought there would
wow,
be.
that's less than I thought, too.
Well, there will be more.
Some of them, yeah, are multiple pages.
Consider
long.
the fact that there are probably 4 to 5 years at least of classified policies that were passed that were never recorded. And so those things are going to come up again, and we're going to be adding. So that number's going to grow.
Who knows that? I mean, where did that information come from?
Tim kind of dug that up.
Is it in a
Because-
place where it can be added to ours, or,
There's no record of them anymore.
oh,
That's
Well, if there's no
what,
record, then we
Yeah.
can't
no, we won't be redoing those. I'm just saying, most of those issues.
Oh, they want to bring them back up.
Most of those issues will come up again at some
Okay.
point. And it
Because-
isn't, you know, it isn't anything of them sitting there and saying, these should have been on there, we're gonna do this. I'm just saying, just through a natural course of events, there's gonna be probably several of those things that will come back that, that they'll be able to see there's now no policy that covers what they thought was covered. And so we'll probably end up adding some things in those areas, but I don't think we'll go out of control with it. And, you know, it's not something that I'm stressed about.
Well, the current human resources section is the biggest,
Yeah.
By
which
far.
which makes sense. But it has both certified and classified
Yeah, there are some
policies
there.
in it.
So it's,
And I'm sure the certified haven't let anything slip.
right.
I'm
Yep.
positive of that.
Sorry to interrupt.
no.
That's okay.
Yeah, anybody else have any comments or questions or feelings about this? Is there anyone who's just dying to be on this committee?
Me,
Okay, all right, so Terry's on, and you're on, and I'm on. Okay, we have our committee then from the board. We'll work on that. Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay. All righty, okay, now we'll do the board evaluation.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for taking the time to give your input on the evaluation. It was good to work with Richard on this, and by the way, he shared his appreciation for what we do here in Cache County. He gave us a glowing review, and considering the source, I took it at face value. He thinks that things are going very well up here. So, just to give you that background. In going through this, rather than go through each question, if I'll take you to the summary at the front. As far as the continuous improvement side goes, we were all had pretty good agreeance there as to what is going on. Basically, what it comes down to is, as a board, we felt that there may be some opportunities to reach out to our constituents more and maybe have their input a little more on what's happening in the district, and then with our legislators. I think that there is some opportunity there. However, I was a little disappointed in, we tried to start out that parent meeting thing, and I really thought that something was going to happen, but it fell flat on its face. And so I don't know how interested our constituents are in having a part in that. I think it's almost like at work, we only escalate things when things aren't going well. If it's going good, they don't want to hear anything about it because there's really no reason to action it. And I'm wondering if that is kind of the feeling, and I thought we ought to talk about that a little bit tonight, is do we want to try and force more interaction, or are we more reactive? That's the part I'm not quite sure what to do. Because it seems like we could invest quite a bit of time and effort into it and maybe have a diminishing return on it, you know. So any feedback anybody has on that?
I would just tell you that I think there are certain modes of operation that are no longer too viable for public when the awareness isn't here. When it's just here, they want input, but they don't want to have to do much to get that input in. So most districts are going to the social media platforms, and there are some really good programs out there that allow people to get input into the district without having to leave their home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think for us in the older generation to have an opportunity to have a public meeting and have interaction with people, that's something that we liked and did a lot, but they aren't too interested in that now because they have instant access and they're all packing a way to get a hold of each of us if they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just telling you, in the future, I've been exposed to several, I know Tim has, ways to get input in and to have an ongoing dialogue with your public. If they want to talk to you on any issue, there's a format to do that that's not open Facebook type stuff. I mean, they have to work to get there,
Mhm.
but it's very easy for them to get input. So maybe we can bring some of those models to you that would give you an idea of how districts are using the internet to have that kind of input that we tried to have. And it also gives us the opportunity to push out information like we were
Sure.
trying to push out, so.
Well, so it's interesting because I reached out to some of the people I know in my area about this, and basically they see on the website, you know, all the good things that are happening, and their comment is, you know, I don't have time to monitor everything.
Yeah.
That's why you're there, you know, and so I'll just reach out to you if I've got a problem, but yeah, so
But
that's,
if we want input on a particular subject area, there are ways to get more information than you ever dreamed is available, and they do it pretty freely and pretty readily because it doesn't take them much time and effort. They don't have to leave their home to do it.
right,
So asking them to come to a meeting on a given night when they already have 2 or 3 other things that they were booked for that night,
yeah,
it's just a little more difficult. So we'll just bring you some platforms, show you how they work,
yeah,
and let you see if you'd want. And what you all been around long enough to know that when things are going pretty well, you don't get a lot of anxiety about having to want information and be able to have input.
mhm,
But as soon as the last decision you make, if it's not a good one, then they want to have an opportunity to have input. And that's what you see happening. And you just barely get a little tiny taste of it now in the newspaper, but if you
Yeah.
go on social media, this Logan thing that they've been going through with coaches and principals and the valedictorian, it's huge out there on social media.
yeah,
But it's not getting, I mean, it gets 1 or 2 letters from the editor, and you get that when the level gets so high that somebody wants to not only pound the nail, they want to print the print. And so I'm just telling you, there are ways that we could do that kind of siphons it off of Facebook and Instagram so that it's not there that we have to go to see it, they'll actually come to our site and give us that input.
Sure. Well, and, you know, the other feeling was, at least from the input that we all provided, was somehow we feel like we need to reach out to the legislators more, but I don't know if we know exactly the right way to do that. The times that I have done that, they have responded, but I think, I don't know what the fine line is between becoming a burden or, you know, the horsefly that they want to swat away and having an active dialogue. I think the plan that we have to bring them into the schools again, I think is a great idea. Outside of that, I don't have a good feel for how much we should be trying to interact with them, but I think collectively we all feel like there's probably something we should be doing there, but I don't know if we're totally sure on how to go about it. Is that accurate, or am I interpreting our results wrong?
Randall's going to do something tonight in that area, correct?
With legislation, yeah.
With legislation. But yeah, I agree. It's really hard to know how much to get involved with them. But what I have heard from each of them on those Saturday meetings is they do appreciate when the legislature is on, if we do send them information
Mhm.
that we get about things, because what is there, 500 bills or something that they're supposed to know and vote on, and they don't.
Right.
They don't really know. So I think,
And maybe that's the thing, we're active during that time, and maybe the rest of the year it's not quite as involved. You were going to say something, Terry.
Janice, I'm trying to remember her last name, on the USBA Board of Directors that I worked with. Her husband is a representative from the Weber area. And she said, which would make sense to all of us as elected officials, that when we only talk to our legislators when we're against something or we want them to do something, that then we become the horsefly. That if we occasionally thank them for some piece of legislation that we liked,
Mhm.
or let them know when we all know how that feels on this board. Only hearing from people when they're upset, just like Steve was saying. In my experience, they are much more willing to listen to what we have to say when we're really concerned about something, if we've had other positive interaction with them throughout the year. For
Agree.
something, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a piece of legislation. Like, if their name is in the paper, write a quick email and say, nice job on this, or it was fun to see your picture in the paper.
Sure.
Thanks for representing us well. So it just gives them a little positive feedback with your name attached to it. So that when we have something that we're really concerned about, that we want them to pay attention to, they already recognize our names.
You have the emotional capital
Right.
already there. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
and I was thinking too, when we do this visit to the school and luncheon, I think it might be a pretty good idea at that time not to complain to them about everything, but let them know.
Tell them thanks, yeah.
Yeah, let them know that we really appreciate what they're doing, and make it a really enjoyable experience for them and us, and that's how we do get acquainted with them,
Mhm.
is when we have little get-togethers, the regional meetings that they come to, and this dinner, which we missed last year because there was a new secretary at Logan, and she didn't know how to pull it all together. But Carolyn is already on it and working on that. So I think that's one good way.
Can I say something again about, back to the board evaluation,
Yeah.
because that's what we were really talking about.
Mhm.
On the community engagement thing, we all attend meetings regularly at the schools, and that matters to those people. It matters to the community people who go to those meetings, the school community council meetings, that they see us there. And it's not because, oh, Jeff Nelson came, it was because we have a school board member at our meeting. And because Kathy and I both attended the Resilience Conference yesterday, and Cherie Hansen was presenting with Ron Stott there about building resilience in high schoolers. And so she was presenting to a lot of people, not from our district. And one of the things that she said, because Kathy and I happened to be in that, she recognized us that we were there. And she said, in all the years that I have been in education, not until this school board have I seen school board members at schools and in meetings with schools. And it matters. And so there again, we're building positive capital, emotional capital with people. And they tell us stuff. Like I was in a meeting, a PTA meeting at North Cache a couple months ago, and the teacher who was there said, as long as you're here, can I just tell you something? I mean, those are the moments that come up.
Yeah.
And she would never send me an email to say something about that. But if we, just when we're in the community, I mean, if we can be in places where there are gatherings of school kids or parents or whatever, and the more they see us, the more that they're excited to tell us something.
Yeah. Or even like a planning and zoning or city council
Right.
to see how the growth is looking and
Right.
that type of thing.
Right.
Okay. Well, anyway, as far as accountability, I think we all feel really good about what we're doing there, and our governance. So, you know, if there is, well, first of all, let me say that the fact that our scores were so similar, I think is a good indication of how we feel about things. And then if there is any opportunity of improvement, I think it is involved in our community engagement and our engagement with the legislature, so.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
Both Terry and Randall heard the idea of putting together some high school students. Was that you that brought this idea up from?
I did too.
Oh, yeah. To get some input from them as to what they think they need to have from our school district. Could we do that on the social media rather than like put a committee together, but reach out to students and
Oh,
just
yeah.
ask them
Yeah, you
one
can
of those
have-
questions, or
You can have, targeted audiences.
do you think
It'll
that-
be skewed negative.
Oh, do you think so?
Well, because self-selected surveys are always skewed negative. When you just put out a question and say, anybody who wants to answer this?
Oh,
Please
people
do.
who are mad answer it.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
I just think it's a good idea for the superintendent to sit with a group of high school kids or whatever, to come and just talk face to face, rather than social media.
Yeah,
Because then you're
exactly.
gonna hear what they like about their high school or their school's experience. You know, that's what I think we need.
Do you like that idea, Steve?
No, I don't mind
Of
that.
getting a group of high school
I don't
kids
mind
from
that
all the high
idea at
schools to
all.
find out
No.
how things are going
Yeah.
and what they like and what they would think.
Yeah.
We could probably include that as one of our goals for next year, is to try to get that set up. After one meeting, we'd know if they're like their parents and if nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Or if they would actually come
Yeah.
to the meeting. But I think the principals could pick out a few kids
Yeah.
that we could just kind of,
Well, if you gave it a title that they could put on a resume that they were a member of, they'd show up.
maybe so.
Yeah, that's big time stuff right now.
And it doesn't have to be monthly, it could
I
be
think
once a
it'd be
quarter or
quarterly.
something, or
You had
twice a year
4
or
high
something.
schools, but essentially, I know you had the 5th one, but if you had one, interaction with their, group of their kids quarterly, that would get us something, some input, and then we could throw in cash high on one particular night, so, I think we can make that work.
I really like that idea, actually. Just, I think it gives us,
Probably would work out better if we did it in conjunction with something they're already doing, rather than have it be,
especially.
they're coming to us, they're already there. Anybody wants to come, they're meeting at this particular time with the superintendent and Mike and board members, and they're having their own little meeting, and we just kind of drop in on it.
so what would be their own little meeting?
Well, you have all kinds of groups over there. You have an active student council, and class representatives and.
All the,
there are
all
other
the,
groups.
don't the big four high schools all have either ambassadors or representatives, the group,
I think
whatever they
so.
call it?
Yeah.
But it's a
Yeah.
group of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
kids who are
Yeah.
not student body, not exec and not, but the separate group.
Yeah. Well, they have, I mean, you have the Hope Squad, I mean, you have a whole bunch of different groups you could, and you wouldn't have to go with elected student body officers every time. You just say, when's your Hope Squad meeting? We'd like to come and drop in and see what's going on in their life. You've got, I mean, they're not coming to me right now, but, the Rotary has their group of kids in each school. I mean, there's all kinds of groups. You just say.
You mean the Key Club?
Key clubs, that's what I was trying to get to, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you just pick one of those groups and drop in and say, hey, we're here and we'd like to take 15 to a half hour of your time to have you tell us how things are and what you think would make these schools better.
Do you all like that idea, maybe trying to incorporate that?
I think we can make that happen.
Roger, do you want to kind of be the board representative for that? To maybe work with whoever Steve assigns or him to see when we could get with some
Yeah.
of the groups and do that? Everybody feel okay about that? I really like that idea. Plus, it makes kids just kind of feel like they are invested in decisions or whatever.
Mhm.
Now, in the past, we have had a student board member too.
Oh,
But it was a long time ago in the past,
uh-huh.
and I don't know why it died.
Change the configuration of the table up here.
Yes, it would. Okay, anything else on this? Thank you very much for doing that. So you are thinking we probably need to concentrate on raising the scores for advocacy and community engagement?
Well, that's where we said we felt like we could use some work.
Yeah.
So that's just our own input there. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably where we ought to target.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, so then next on the agenda is the board goals. And I asked Carolyn to post it on here so that you could see them ahead of time. 'Cause actually, I'd kind of forgotten what we had set for our goals. I don't look at them often enough. And see if we would like to adjust any of these, retire any of them, change it for new ones or whatever on there. But I will say, I really like that we have a mission statement and we have a vision statement and we have our goals. And so every time I hear someone talk about, oh, you need a strategic plan at one of our national meetings, I think, well, that is our strategic plan, isn't it? If we have those three things and we're working on them and the district is working on them with us as well. So I think the goals are a big deal in helping us have a strategic plan and working towards accomplishing something that will benefit our district. So the first one, the Cache County Board of Education will focus on supporting policies and practices that promote student achievement in all areas. Do you want me to read through all of them, or do you want me to take one at a time and get your input? Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? Should we put a new one in at the end?
Oh, I like this one.
All right, anybody have any issues with this, or?
Number 4 probably won't fit
Okay.
with what I'm undertaking.
All right, so, yeah, so what would be a better, I mean, that was our goal, that we were gonna try to start working on it. And it actually is our MBA goal for the year too.
I wonder if something about creating the policy committee
Yeah.
and organizing the way policy updating and revision is dealt with, or something to that effect.
Okay. Okay. Should I just work on something and bring it back? Okay. All right. What about the second one? We'll work on promoting an environment and overall climate in our district where students and staff feel appreciated and respected.
And I think we do that a lot with the, Jenna's always putting things on Facebook and stuff and letting people know what's happening, because there's a lot of people that see that.
Yeah,
So I like that.
I like that too.
I think the first three goals are so general that you could leave them on there every year.
I do too.
Okay,
Not only general, but great policy statements
Yeah.
about how you're gonna treat people
okay,
and how the climate's gonna be. So I like them.
all right.
One thing I think has really helped is the bringing the different organizations into the first of the meeting and, you know, showcasing
Oh,
whatever it is. I think that's worked out really nicely. And I've actually had some of my constituents talk about that, just when they had the opportunity to come in, so I think that's a good practice.
That is totally a principal buy-in. If the principal doesn't buy in, then nothing happens from their school.
Right.
But, yeah, when I pass around a list at one of the principal meetings, and I've learned, don't try to have anybody come before January, because they don't know what to sign up for, you know, because they're not sure what their kids are doing. But that does give us at least 4 months that we can highlight, and it's fun for me to have them come. I think the parents get to see us,
Yeah,
who we are, and it makes the principal look great when the kids show up as well. So,
But I think they can find things before January.
do you, should I put some
Oh, yeah.
additional dates on?
yeah, I
There's
think,
things happening all the time in the schools, you know.
Well, your main programs, like your bands and your choirs and those, they'd have something ready by October,
Okay,
come and show. Elementary schools might be struggling a little to get something picked up by then, but
all right. Well, when I go this next year, then I'll start in October. I'll let them sign up. And if they sign up, great. If they don't, then we'll take them when they come.
Like Mountain Crest Band was at Summerfest today, and they sounded great, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I guess it was part of their fundraising, but
They could
That's
probably
fine.
pull something off in September, actually.
that's what I would think.
It's more work for the teacher, but in most cases, the teachers get recognized
Yeah.
for all of the extra work
Yeah.
they
and they're
do.
selling it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, what, like it or not, it's a sales
Pitch.
opportunity for the organization, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll keep the first three, if that's okay. We'll adjust the fourth one. Do we want to say anything more in regards to our evaluation? I hate to get too many goals, but,
Well, I think it would be good to add the one that Roger's going to do with including students,
Students in the,
getting student input.
How would you wordsmith that one, Terry?
Reach out to students to get input on board direction, board policy, board
Mhm.
district direction.
Kathy can put that into the words.
yeah, I'll think about it and see what I can come up with.
Increase student input through quarterly meetings.
Say that again.
Increase student input through quarterly meetings.
There you go.
Okay. Have you done a lot of writing, Larry? You're really good at putting things together in words.
I can say it. I'm an idea man.
Uh-huh.
I need somebody sitting by me where I can just spout it out, and they put it down.
I guess that's why we are a council
Yeah.
or a board. Okay, all right, we'll make adjustments, and then I will bring them to you and see if you like those. We'll do what we did with the acronyms. I'll have Carolyn print off new ones, so we can put them in our brand-new handbook that she just had printed. Okay, anybody have anything more to say on goals? All right, what about working with legislators now? Randall?
Okay. I'm going to come up to the front, is that all right?
Yeah.
Turn it on and eat it.
Could you lead off with just a story, like at the retirement party?
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd juggle or something first.
Okay, so I appreciate your comment. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about keeping in contact with legislatures and saying good things about them, because they will definitely listen more to you if you do have something you want to voice your concern with. Okay, so since we are all politicians, we ought to know a little more about politics, and I know I'm not very good, so I thought maybe we could have a little test here. So the first thing I'm going to do is have everybody close their computers.
Uh-oh.
Okay, and you can't look on your phones. I want everybody to get their agenda, flip it over, and write 1 to 13 down the side.
Oh,
13.
Yee.
Most of them are pretty easy, though. One through 13.
So much for the opening tip-off.
Yeah, we'll make it.
Not if you have to drive to Avon.
Just,
And then Summerfest.
Oh, yeah, go through Summerfest, too.
walk away, buddy. My wife's headed to New York in about an hour with kids, and so
Should we wait for Colette? Colette's there until tomorrow.
I, oh, it's,
Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
This is close.
Okay.
We all know that Utah's governor is Gary Herbert. Lieutenant governor is Spencer Cox. Your first question is, who are Utah's 2 U.S. senators? You can't cheat and look on Terry's paper.
You're making a great assumption there.
Oh, crap, I can't remember the one guy. He ran for president.
yeah, that's, I was struggling too.
I'm just gonna, I know who it is, I just gotta go.
Okay, it'll come to you. Okay, question number 2. This is true or false. Our U.S. senators represent the entire state. Is that true or false? Okay, question number 3. The United States has a total of 435 congressional districts. How many do we have in Utah? Congressional districts. Okay, number 4. In the United States, there's a total of 435 congressional districts. It comes out to almost 9 per state. The average state has 9. We don't have quite that many because we're smaller in population. So how many do we have? Okay, question number 4. Name as many of these congressmen as you can out of the districts that we have.
Oh, my gosh. Know them all, but the names aren't gonna come.
Should we just do last names?
Yeah, you can do last names, that's good.
And if we know the person and what position he last held, can we put that?
Give you the full history and background, and you can't get a name. Goodness.
Okay, we ready for 5?
Yeah.
Okay, which of the ones that you just listed represents you? You should know that. He actually spoke at one of our graduations last year. His bright white hair.
I'm gonna say there ought to be points for telling me everything about his life, just because you can't put a name.
He probably was a bishop once.
Oh. It wasn't coming. No.
Okay. So Utah has a total of 75 different representatives, and they're sometimes called members of the House. Question number 6 is, who is this gentleman right here?
I just
No, it's not gonna do any good to bring it
He's one of
closer.
the youngest ones, and
Youngest one.
and
He
he's
is.
on Facebook, and if you comment on there,
And
he'll
he
comment back
raises
and
sheep
thank you.
and he works with,
Yeah, and he lives on the
Yeah.
south end of
He
the
lives
valley.
over in your neck of the
He
woods.
just moved into Avon.
Yeah, okay, so
We
that's
know
your,
who he is, we just can't
Yeah.
remember his name.
okay. So that was question number 6. Question number 7 is, who is this guy? Dale, do you know this one?
I can't think of his name either.
God.
Totally. So who's gonna give me a hint?
Oh, for crying out loud.
to him?
He works with Clay.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
He works with Clay?
That's one for sale down at Summerfest, too.
Oh,
He was a colonel on MASH, how does that sound?
okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, this one's a little fuzzy, sorry about this one. Who is this one here? This is number 8. Number 8.
he took Scott Sandal's place.
You could be holding up my kids, and I'd be struggling tonight.
Okay, so the next question is, every one of us here is represented by one of these 3. Each one of us, okay.
At
least one of us here.
Got one.
Okay, so
Just
which one,
came.
so which one of these is your representative legislator? That's where you live,
Yeah.
one of them.
You couldn't have been any more better with the clue, but it just didn't ring the bell.
Okay. Question number 9.
10.
10.
Oh, 10, excuse me, 10. Okay. Okay. So what are these 2 guys' names?
Oh, okay.
What number is this?
This is number 10. What is their names and what is their title?
I bet we know our legislators better when we're done with this.
I already know them really well, I just can't put a name on
Can't
it.
remember their names.
No.
Okay, and number 11, which of these 2 represents you? Not everyone in this room, not all of us will have the same one. We'll have different ones depending on where we live. Okay. We're getting close here. Okay, number 12. Who is this guy here?
Jeez. Okay,
Where does
now,
he live?
now the facial recognition is not working either. It's not only I can't name him, I don't.
Okay, question number 13, last one. Name 3 ways in which you can contact your legislator. If you can name more than that, that's great.
Thanks for the give me at the end.
Okay,
Okay, who taught up at North Cache with you?
With me?
Yeah, that's related to one of the representatives. Stewart,
Oh,
just came.
okay, so let's go over okay, is everybody ready? We'll go over them. Number 1 was, who are Utah's 2 U.S. senators? Romney and Mike Lee. Good job. Okay. True or false? U.S. senators represent the entire state.
Yes.
That is true, yes. The U.S. has 435 congressional districts. How many does Utah have? 4, exactly. Okay, which are the 4 congressmen that represent these districts? This is one of them right here. This is the one that represents all of us,
This guy was Bishop.
Rob Bishop. Do we know who the other 3 are?
McAdams?
Ben McAdams, he took Mia Love's place.
Stewart
Chris Stewart?
Chris Stewart,
and the Provo mayor.
Provo Mayor, yeah. John Curtis. John Curtis, he's the other one. Okay, good. Okay, we answered 5 just barely. Rob Bishop is the one that represents northern Utah, so he's the one we should contact. Okay. So who's this guy here?
Casey Snyder.
Casey Snyder, he lives over in your neck of the woods, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's in my ward.
Oh, is he really?
I'm glad you knew him.
You had an unfair advantage.
Okay,
Yeah, he
so
doesn't get to count those.
Casey represents 4 of us in here. Which 4 does he represent? Raise your hand.
Boom and boom, yeah.
That's right.
South end of the valley.
So Jeff, Randall, Roger, and Larry. Okay.
And why is there more on the south end of the valley?
More population.
More population.
Okay.
South end took over about, 5 years ago, the lines crossed.
So this gentleman here, do we know his name?
Val.
Val Potter, yes. And who did,
Works with Clay?
so is he your brother-in-law?
He is.
Okay. Okay. So which 3, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 of us in here that he represents.
Probably me.
Kathy, who else?
He represents me.
You, Dale,
Dale.
and well, Chris isn't here, but Chris was the other one that he would represent.
Who represents you, Terry?
The next one.
Oh,
I'm in Box Elder County,
Cross,
if you didn't
yeah.
know.
And what's his name?
I can't remember.
Joel Ferry.
Yeah,
and is he new?
yeah,
Yes.
relatively.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's really,
took
yeah, he lives
this
over there.
older fellow.
He
But-
just started this year. He took Scott Sandal's place.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah. So it's kind of funny here. So
He just reaches in and grabs a tiny
a
bit.
little bit of a Newton area up there.
Well, he takes in
Clarkston,
Cache Junction, Newton, Clarkston,
Clarkston.
and Cornish.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you ever see him?
No.
There's a bonus,
Only at voting time.
okay, there's a bonus one here. This Logan City Limits, we didn't show a picture of him, but who takes care of Logan City? Who would be the representative for that area?
He's our old educator.
What's his name?
Dan Johnson.
Dan Johnson, good, perfect, okay. Okay. Okay, we talked about these 2. What's his name? Lyle Hilliard,
Sandal or?
Scott Sandal, yes. Okay, and these 2 are state senators, that's what they are. So they're similar to what kind of a U.S. senator is to the president. They are kind of similar to what a senator is to the governor. These 2. And Scott Sandal represents 2 of us in here. Do we know which 2 that he represents? Larry
And Terry?
and Terry, yep. Scott Sandal,
I like him. I really like him.
okay.
Just making a
Yeah,
comment.
he's a
He's
nice,
man.
yeah, and he hasn't really gone one direction or another. He
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot
Hasn't
about it,
played
but
the
every time I've
company
seen him, he's been
Republican
very nice.
line, and he hasn't been somebody you'd say was a true friend of education, but he's kind of walked the,
Okay, and so we know who represents the rest of us here. Okay, know who this guy is? Okay, this is a curveball I threw you. This is the governor of Wyoming, so I don't even know. I don't even know his name here.
I knew there was no facial recognition whatsoever. It wasn't, I was gonna come up with his name.
You're okay after all. Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay, 3 ways that you can contact your legislator. How do you do that? What are some?
Email.
Email is very easy. You can do that.
Mail, text.
Text them, yeah.
Phone.
Phone.
Go to the Saturday meeting.
Saturday meetings are a very effective way because they can see you. Letter, yes, okay. Yeah. Do that. So those are 3 ways. Any other ways anyone can think of?
Face-to-face contact, but that's like going to
Yeah.
the meetings.
Okay,
The Saturday meetings are awesome because they're all mostly there, so you get all of them at one time.
exactly, yeah. Those are very effective. I think those are the best way. If you go up and introduce yourself and let them know who you are.
And if they see us there, they kind of focus in on education
do,
things that are going
yeah.
on, so that's.
It's their way of getting away from all the
Other stuff,
other stuff.
yeah.
Okay, so I just have kind of 3 key points here I'd like to kind of hammer in. First one is learn who your representatives are, know who represents you. I know that as being members of the school board, if someone in our area contacts us, we probably jump on the ball pretty quick and get back to them, and a lot of them feel the same way. And the second thing, which we just talked about, is that we should also try to let them know who we are. And I think that's very effective. And so if we go to these Saturday sessions, that is a very good way of doing it. When we go through the classrooms with them in the fall, that's another good way to introduce ourselves and talk to them. Any other ways you can think of where they can get to know us better? Thoughts or ideas?
I guess if you just see them around town,
Yeah,
you can introduce yourself.
yeah. Yeah, if it's appropriate, go ahead and introduce yourself. Good. Okay, and the other thing that I think is very important, I think it's important that we understand and look at what committees they're on too. And I don't know if you know it, but Lyle Hilliard is on a committee that deals with us a lot. He's on the Public Education Committee. Okay, so he's the one that we really should be contacting if we have issues or things we want to talk to him about with public education. And so you can look on there, you can get online and find out who is on this committee and contact other ones there too. But the ones that make the decisions on the areas that you're concerned about are probably the ones you want to spend most of your time focusing with. So Lyle Hilliard, he's on most of the education ones.
Most of the ones that I've emailed with the different issues when they're in the legislature, email back too.
Okay, good.
Dan Johnson is really good to do that, and actually Scott Sandell has been really good, and so has Lyle. They don't always agree with what I say, but.
Yeah, Dan Johnson, he'll give you his phone number out and tell you, yeah, I know, he's very good about that, yeah. That's very good.
So
Okay.
Randall, do you have these pictures on your office wall?
It's funny here. I told my wife, I says, hey, I'm gonna do the thing where you print it out, and she gets her nice cardstock, shiny paper. I just blew me away here, so, anyway.
You can frame those, buddy.
Yeah, you can frame these here, so I can give you.
Now you gotta buy some new ink.
Let's see here. There you go, good man. Hey, Terry, which one would you like?
Joel Ferry, so I can remember his name.
Okay, so sorry, he's a little blurry. He didn't have very good.
That's okay.
Which one would you like?
Doesn't matter, go ahead.
Now, which one is yours here? Do you
Uh,
have
so-
Casey? You have
yeah.
Casey, don't you like Casey?
Yeah.
Okay,
You should put the names on all of those so we can remember.
so you have Val too then, okay, so which one would you like?
Oh, let's see.
Who's got the governor of
I'll
Wyoming?
take Lyle.
Lyle,
Take your old buddy Lyle.
Yeah.
Okay, Roger.
We go back a long way.
Rob Bishop.
Because he actually has his
I'll
daughter.
take the Wyoming. No, I don't care.
Which one would you
Well,
like?
I wanted Wyoming, that's where my daughter lives.
Okay, you get Rob Bishop. Okay.
Oh, my gosh, that was fun.
Okay, thank you.
That was great. Okay, so.
Kathy,
Yes.
before we leave that topic, my son works as an accountant down in Lehigh, and he was called into a special meeting with a whole herd of businessmen this week. And the meeting was led by a very influential law group whose main partner is a legislator. And the full topic of the meeting was, we've got to band together to break open that pot of education money that is being held hostage, that we can fund all of the programs we want. And so just know that's going on right now. They're pushing and they're putting out a bunch of misinformation to try and skew the public's view.
Keep business from paying their fair share with sales tax stuff.
Well,
It's big.
I think, Steve, you said you would put together
Yeah,
something. maybe
I've got
for
a
the next
folder
one.
about that big of
Oh.
things I've already run off of different perspectives of different groups on. And then Rob, we're waiting for Rob Smith from Alpine to send us the exact figures, so we don't put a figure in there about how much we could have had they not given it to colleges and when it exactly got going. So he's getting some information, but we'll have it the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
But it's out there.
well, that's good, because then we have correct information.
If
that we
business
can use.
can get this onto income tax, that would be they'd be very pleased. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question before you close.
Yeah,
I was at the State Board Finance Committee meeting last Friday, and Frugal Dougal, I should probably, Mr. Dougal, auditor,
He calls himself that too, so.
and two of his research analysts were there presenting, they call it Project Kids, which is Key Integrated Data Systems, where they have taken, and Cache is one of the 6 districts that they have created this tool, they call it a tool for school boards. And so I'm just wondering when we're gonna see that? Because they're moving to phase 3, which is to push it out to the public.
Yeah, where
And-
are we at? I don't know where we're at.
I actually got a call from one of the auditors down there that wants to come up Monday morning and just do a review how this is working for us, what recommendations we have for changes or things that would help it for us. And sadly enough, all I can say is I haven't looked at it once since
I haven't either.
it was first
what is it?
handed to us.
Oh, it's.
They're taking this, well, in a nutshell, they're taking financial data and dividing it by student, by teacher, by classroom, by student. But the way their initial basis is too simplified in my opinion. For instance, if you have a high school math teacher, Mrs. Smith, who makes $75,000 teaching in her classroom and is also the volleyball coach and so has a $2,500 stipend per year, then she's making $77,500 total in the year. But how is that divided between her activities and between her students? So they're taking her salary and dividing it by how many students she teaches. And so essentially what they're doing is trying to show inequality
Among the teachers.
among teachers and among students.
And schools.
And schools. And
That
so,
doesn't make sense.
phase 1 was that they did it with 2 school districts. Phase 2 was they did it with 6. And then they have these dashboards that they've created. They had a big slide, PowerPoint presentation where you can, digitally, you could go in and figure out down to your student. But all I could see was, great, if phase 3 is to push this out to the public, and they heard that day from the UEA president and from Todd Halber, who is the BA for Park City, and from Terry Shoemaker, who all said, this needs to be very carefully done if you're taking it to the public, because in my mind, as I sat and watched it, I just thought, great. So I can think of several parents who are gonna call me after looking at this
Yeah.
and say, My Johnny is not getting as much money as,
Yeah.
as Sally next door.
And it's all basically on salaries.
It is,
Because
it's based on,
that's
and
where
that's
all our
way
money
too
goes.
simplified, because,
We tried to tell them, we spent, what, almost a half a day with them, and by the time we got done with that half a day, everybody in the district office was so frustrated that they were trying to push this on us. And we got selected because we were right next to Logan, who somehow got selected, and so they figured they might as well use us.
And Clark City that has the same counting system
Yeah.
as us, so
Yep.
we were an easy.
So we were an easy target, but they're hell-bent on getting some information out there that I think is gonna be so confusing to parents, because they're not gonna understand the difference in the amount of money backing a student is basically based on whether the teacher's at the 29th year of her career or her first year.
but also based on whether your student's in special ed, or
Yeah.
whether they're regular ed. Or
Yeah.
whether your student is doing 10 sports, or whether your student's doing none.
My last question to him was, did you ever talk to any business managers before you tried to go down this road? And-
Well,
Oh, my gosh. I don't even
Mr.
understand all
Dougal
that
was
stuff. It sounds
quite
crazy to me.
excited about it while he was there, and he shook my hand twice. And I rode in the elevator with him, and I just was like, this is way, this is, anyway. So I just wondered if you've seen the tool yet?
It's on
That's
our
supposed
I
to
guess
be,
it's out there.
it's supposed
Yeah.
to help school, but I mean, they're selling it as a tool to
Oh.
help school boards make better
Well,
decisions
they
on
were trying to sell
funding.
it to us, and it was gonna make, we could make better decisions.
Yeah.
So now they've just moved it one.
And their
Yeah.
parting words is this is only intended to be used at the district level. It's not intended to go out to the public.
Yeah, that was
I
the
mean-
last thing they said, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that was phase two, in phase two. But then they only included 6 school districts, of which we were one of the luckies. And
Well,
now
Dale
phase-
can, if you wanna see it, Dale can probably tell you how to get to it. Like he said, I haven't had time to look at it, he hadn't had time to look at it, and it's far more detailed than I need, because when I get to the end, it's not gonna give me any information that I think's valuable. Yeah, so,
Well, mostly, I was just concerned about it going public.
oh, I agree,
Yeah, because parents will look at it and,
yeah.
you're right, they'll think their kid's being slighted. But if a kid had all 30-year teachers and another kid had all first-year
We'll
teachers.
talk about a whole school.
Yeah,
Take a school like Lincoln that's had a mature staff for a long time now. They've just about turned over. So they're all first, second, third, fourth, fifth year It's gonna look like we don't fund that school at all.
uh-huh,
And somebody's gonna say, you got,
gotta do
what,
something.
what the heck? Why are you putting all this money into Providence?
Huh?
It's just
Well,
crazy.
when it comes out, we might need some talking points for that. too.
We will, yeah.
All right, so, anybody have anything else?
I just wanted to point, there is one little article I gave you that kind of leads us down this discussion of how do we stay away from having them take income tax?
Oh, this one
To
right here.
fund, it's really, if you want to know what it is, it's income tax to fund roads. You can couch it any other way you want, but if you take that much money out of the sales tax, what is it, 500, 800 million a year goes to roads? You're just taking money from income tax and saying that we're using it to pave roads. You can run it through the Medicaid if you want, but the Medicaid money's already there and it's now going to roads.
Don't they use like taxes on alcohol and cigarettes and stuff for roads? They used to.
We get the alcohol. I don't know who gets the tobacco. Yeah.
This is a funny story about my mom, which I'll hurry really fast, but you all know, my dad was an alcoholic. Well, at least I've mentioned it a few times. So when we'd be out driving and there was a newly paved road, my mom would say, "Look at that road that your dad helped him build." Thank you, everyone.
I just have one question.
Oh, okay.
What are we gonna do at the south end? They're starting another subdivision, well, they did in Paradise. Now there's another subdivision starting on like 3200 South, which is about a mile past the vet clinic. There's a large field there that they just pulled the trailer on to start the subdivision.
There's still
Yeah.
big ones going in there.
And those up above Canyon is crazy. Where are they all gonna go?
Well, they've
And
already,
Nibley's routed.
they've already got, how many, 7 houses up already on the corner by Skyview that was a empty field by
Yeah.
Jeannie Nelson's house. And that all
There's
will
gonna
be,
be awful lot of portables that are gonna be filled first, okay? We've done it, that's the way we've done it. 'Cause
So there's
we-
no more room in Nibley to put portables at Nibley Elementary, is there?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
there-
there is, yeah,
Is there?
yeah.
In the parking lot?
But, we've got, one of your discussion items is when to get another bond committee going, but you just need to remember, before we build an elementary, we have enough kids to fill it. So you're gonna see an awful lot of portables around schools, because when we build it, we wanna have the building full. So we've operated that way for the 24 years I've been here, 3 years. I'm sure they were doing that before, because we can't afford to build a building and then only have partially full. So,
So should I
Tell the
put,
people there'll be more portables.
Yeah,
Take care of
yep.
that.
should I put that on the next agenda for us to cover?
Mike
the-
is working on some data right now for population,
Okay,
so you gotta give him some time.
I was gonna talk about these last few items.
Yeah, he's working on that. I've got the other one,
Okay,
about, talking points, and so we've got that
Mm-hmm. and we've already
one.
talked about the student
And
parent
we've got
roundtable.
population coming. Population will
And
lead
the
you to
bond,
the
the
discussion of when
building
you have your
committee.
next bond. Yeah. You need to know elementary is really, I know there's a lot of building going on, but our elementary grades are getting smaller than they have been for 3 years. Yeah,
I think,
so it's
is it
what-
3 years? I sat by Gary and I thought he said 2 years.
Well, this will be the 3rd year I think we're going into.
But we were sort of chatting about that, and so like these apartment buildings that are going in, and down here, the Four Seasons, it's the millennials who are moving in, who are not having children.
Kids, yeah.
Instead, they're having boats and,
Dogs and cats.
yeah, so, anyway, when we get that,
We didn't,
Growth,
we
maybe.
have lots of subdivisions, lots of places that went in, and the one down by Deloy's place is one, it didn't produce hardly any kids for River Heights at all.
the one out in Smithfield by, west of Skyview, I think that brought 10, new children to
Yeah,
Summit last
yeah.
year, but they still have
So,
one.
we know that they're coming, but the natural birth rate of the county is down. Kindergarten classes are getting less every year. So the secondary is what's really caused us to grow. And, yeah, but we're watching them all. Yeah, I drive around about once a week. I'll take a ride just to see how things are going. But we'll have a lot of portables.
so what are you and Mike doing to pass on your institutional knowledge about bond processes to the newer district
Yeah,
administrators?
we understand that, it's got to be passed on, and you do have one film that we kind of made a visual for that whole process. If you were to watch that, you could get through a bond election.
I have watched it.
So, but we are passing, we know that we've got to train some of the guys that sit out there, and we'll work them hard on this next one.
Okay, well, and we'll talk about putting it on another agenda.
Yeah.
Where we can get information from others, because, one of the things that I did put on that list that was brought up is, should we be thinking about putting together a committee now on what kind of building are we gonna need, where?
Well, that will be the direct result of when you look at your population study.
Okay,
That should guide you.
okay,
And then, you know, you get that information, and then essentially I hate the word politics, but some of that enters in, in that you can go different directions. And we never ever set out to go the direction we ended up the last committee. I mean, plain and simple. If we'd have said we were gonna build 2 high schools when we started that committee, we'd have been laughed right out of this county.
3, actually.
But the process led, yeah, 3, you're right. But the process led to it because you gave them good data. And if they have good data, they'll make the right decision.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate you coming. We'll see you next Thursday. And this meeting is adjourned.